Tim, I'm looking.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. In 5, 4, 3. Live.
Good evening. I would like to call this Finance Committee meeting to order. August 17th, 2020 at 7:26 p.m. tonight. I'll start with an official roll call. Monica?
Pamela Fitzgerald.
Here.
Kiana Trabue.
Here.
Esther Boyd.
Here.
Thank you, Monica. We'll start with the review and approval of the previous minutes from July 2020. They were part of your packet. Please take a minute to review those. I do have a correction to start with, and that's at the very beginning. There was I guess a typo for far as the roll call. It has Robert Lawson as a committee member, so it needs to be changed to myself, Pam Fitzgerald.
And then add Robert Lawson to others in attendance.
And move Robert. Yes.
Yep.
Thanks, Kiana.
It's the same thing I was getting ready to say.
I'll give you a few minutes to review it, and you can let me know if you see any other corrections or things that we need to talk about. You can just look up and let me know when you're completed. I need a motion if everybody's completed the review of the minutes. I need a motion to approve the previous minutes from July 2020.
I'll make a motion to approve the July 2020 minutes.
I'll second it.
The minutes have been approved and seconded. Okay, we'll move forward to the agenda items for the meeting. First off is our income tax update from Charles. He'll give us an update as well as the revenue for year-to-date monthly. And we'll briefly discuss the total collected road levy progress as of to date, August.
Hello, all. Okay. In a normal month, all funds that are collected would normally be processed into our CMI system. But July of this year was an exceptional month, being that it was the tax deadline. I said that to say that all of the funds for July were not inputted into the CMI system by July's end. So we continue to do that into the month of August. And actually, we just finished that process this past Friday. I guess that was August 14th, where about all of the July monies were inputted into the CMI system by August 14th. Normally, it would be done by the end of July. So with that being the case, a lot of our revenues for July are showing up in the month of August. Now, I've been in contact with CMI on how to show those funds that are for July in July, and we haven't gotten to a resolution yet as to what actually or how to move those funds to July. So I'm saying that to say that I do not have reports. That's why you haven't received reports for the month of July. Called CMI or emailed CMI first thing this morning to see if the resolution had been completed, and they're still working on that. I'm hopeful to have that. We thought we would have it today, but we didn't get it today. So we don't know what was collected for. We know what was collected, but we just don't have the figures to show that what the total amount of July is, because part of those monies, like I said, are showing up in August.
So to be honest, I don't know how they're going to correct that, because normally you just roll it on to the next month. It's okay if it's month over month, as long as it makes sense as a year-to-date number. Because there's going to be months like that where you're going to get money and it doesn't get processed, but you don't move, you count it as the month that it was actually processed in. A lot of times you don't go back and backdate that type of information, but you know on a year-to-date basis that you're falling right where you should be. They call it an accrual. Sometimes you can accrue the money if you have it and it doesn't get processed, but if you don't, you can just, you would just roll it over to the next month. Do you have any numbers so we can see where we might stand just as a village?
Currently, I don't. But I can have something for you for tomorrow to discuss.
Okay.
I can have something for tomorrow to discuss at possibly the law committee, that's on Wednesday, or at the council meeting next week.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Sure.
Yeah, I can give you guys a little bit. So for the month of July, we received in $434,183 of tax money. Roughly, from what we can estimate based on figures that we have, roughly 34, make it 35,000 of that in round numbers was related to the additional road taxes. Obviously, once Charles is able to rectify things with CMI, we can kind of get a better idea of what was collected and should be attributed to July. But that's what we received in for the month of July on the finance side.
So is that July and August, or that's just July? That's
just July. So we brought in a total of $434,184 in just income taxes. Of that amount, $34,910 was the additional road tax.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be interesting if they go back and do that. I mean, they can.
Yeah.
I mean, that's when you close the books, really. When you close it out, you would
Sure.
accrue and say, hey, I haven't been able to process it, but I do have this many checks or whatever that came in, and I want credit for it. So you would
Yeah,
go
and
in, and
and you're-
accrue that much money, or
Yeah.
whatever the difference is that he didn't get through, right?
Yeah, and that would be true if we were an accrual city, if we were a gap city
Right.
or village.
Right.
Since we're on
Right.
cash, we report it as it comes in.
Okay.
I think to Charles's point, he was trying to report what technically came in July, so we can figure out kind of what our tax situation is as a whole. As July is kind of like our April right now, and
Right.
with all the stuff going on, we were trying to figure out about where we were going to land. So those July numbers were important to do some estimates.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds like a pretty big month compared to the numbers, we've gotten. I think
It
it's a couple
was.
hundred.
It was good size.
Okay, so Charles, you can just update us through the committee through an email once you get it. And I know that might take a couple days, but once you get it, I think you guys can just send us an email. I think that'll be sufficient.
I sure will.
Does anybody else have questions on income tax?
Can you just send that to all of council?
Sure thing. No problem.
To the finance update from Tim.
Okay. Before I start, I want to give a big shout out to Charles. He's been working tirelessly to get everything processed and taxes for July. Also want to thank Ashley Madden while I've got a minute. There were some federal items I needed help with related to the food grant. She handled those and took care of those like a pro, and I really appreciate all the help that my team gives me. As far as finance committee reports, audit status for the village. The 2018-2019 financial audit has concluded. We received a draft copy of audit findings that's been provided to council as well. I've gone ahead and prepared responses to each finding, with the exception of a couple that'll probably be discussed in law committee. Once I get responses to all of those, I'll go ahead and send them over to the state, and they'll add those to our report. Once again, that was a non-GAGAS approach, which means the state will not issue an opinion on that audit. Any questions on that while I'm here? No?
No.
Reports provided, we have the appropriation.
I'm sorry,
Sure.
that we did get a copy of the,
Of the proposed, yeah. You should have received a copy of at least from me, you received a copy of the proposed findings. That was via email. And then the state sent you guys all hard copies of that as well. Those should have been delivered.
Yeah, that I got.
Yep.
So you're saying there was two, so we need to check our emails for information as well. Or is that the same?
It should be the same, yeah. But
Okay.
what I sent you in the email should be, the findings should be the same as the ones in the envelope.
Okay, thanks.
Let's see, reports that you guys have, we've got the appropriations and revenue reports. As of July 31, 2020, the village collected 53% of budgeted revenues and expended approximately 46% of appropriations. Given that we're in July, that's not bad. We're halfway through the year. We haven't spent half of the budget yet, and we've collected just a shade over half of our revenues. The detailed budget and actual reports are included for the committee's review. I've also provided on those appropriations spreadsheets that you guys get. We've added a new fund, which is Fund 2051, which is a Firefighters COVID-19 supplemental grant. That was federal money that was given to the fire department. That was because of a submission from our fire department. So they did a great job in getting the grant. The grant is through FEMA. The total grant amount for the fire department is $23,860.95. The village does have a match on that of $1,193.05. So it's a fairly small match. They'll go ahead and use that money to purchase equipment and protective gear. As far as receipts and expenses.
Hey, Tim, I have one question.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
think I saw on that fund, it was still showing a zero. So you're still working on that?
Well, the fund is still zero because they haven't received the grant yet. So that
Okay.
we know they're getting it, but it hasn't been receipted in.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
With receipts and expenses for the month of July, the village has collected $534,765, and we dispersed $529,954.93. So we're still keeping more than we spend, which is always a positive thing. The general fund receipts and disbursements are still mostly in line with the village as a whole. The village collected 49% of general fund budgeted revenues and expended 50% of general fund appropriations. That collections number, back to Charles, what Charles told us before, that revenues number should probably be up a little bit based on what's actually were July taxes. We'll start to see more of that in August, I think. And obviously, you guys have the fund balance reports. You can kind of monitor our fund balances. Everything looks fairly healthy. Obviously, we're still working on the negative fund balances. We'll get to that here in just a little bit. Any questions on any of the reports so far? No?
Only the fund balances. I have a question so far.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so I was looking at June as well as July, trying to compare the two. I see where you added the 2051 firefighters COVID, which you said that hasn't come through yet, so I understand that portion.
Yep.
I see that some of these balances, the ones that were negative, have decreased, so I see that that's going backwards the other way.
Correct.
But I thought in one of the meetings early on, there was the drug law enforcement account. I thought it was one of these that you were going to take care of, the smaller ones. It was like 7,500.
Yes, we can take care of those with transfers. I was going to do that at the end of the year, but
Okay.
I can put legislation through to take care of them whenever we like. I was just going to kind of wait until November, December, make sure we land in a good place, and then just transfer them over.
That's fine. You can wait. I just thought that we talked about it, and when I saw it still there, I just wanted to ask
Yes.
a question about it.
Absolutely.
Let's see.
I had a question, Pam, if that's okay.
Sure, go ahead.
Tim, I had a question. So previously we talked about the other CARES Act funding that we got to the tune of about 51. Yeah. So fund number 2151, coronavirus relief fund, that 51,000 that we had
Correct.
talked about in a previous meeting. We had some conversation about purchasing some things for the fire department out of that balance. Is
Yeah.
that now not going to happen because they got this 23,000? Or
No,
has that already?
No, you got it. The 23,000 is for other equipment and protective gear for the fire department. To my knowledge, we're still planning or thinking about purchasing, and I'm forgetting the name of the piece of equipment, but essentially it essentially does CPR automatically for you.
Mhm.
I believe we're still planning on buying that out of that 51,000 of the Fund 2151.
Okay, so the 23,000 is to cover some other equipment, and it
Yes.
will take that whole 23,000?
It should. When the fire department, when you apply for a federal grant, you have to put in a budget for it.
Mhm.
And if anybody wants to see those, I have those in my office. But Assistant Chief Pittman, and I'm sure Chief Johnson went ahead and put that budget in. That did not include that machine on that. It included other equipment that the fire department was looking to get.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
I think that's it for me for fund balances.
Okay. Included in your packets is an overtime report. The village spent $16,407.24 in overtime for the month of July. The village has spent a total of $98,727.29 in overtime for the year, with the police department and fire departments accounting for 47% and 25% respectively.
I have a comment on that portion.
Go ahead.
You know, $100,000 is quite a bit for such a small entity for overtime. That just reiterates the fact that we need to try to do what we can to try to get these two departments in line so we can cut back on some of the spending. I don't know if any other council or committee members have any comments on that as well. It's a pretty big chunk.
I would agree. When I saw that number, my eyes bulged out just a little bit. I think that is a lot of money. I think the other piece of it too is I think we can make some generalizations about why we're seeing so much overtime, but it would be good to dig deeper into the overtime and really understand why. I think, you know, what we've heard before is that, you know, we're understaffed, which I totally get. I'm not saying that that is not the case, but it would be good to, if we have an opportunity to break that down a little bit further. to see if there are any trends in overtime with particular shifts or, anything like that. Because in order to really make a decision and figure out a plan to combat this overtime, we need to understand why it's happening in the first place.
I'll reach out to both of the chiefs and kind of ask them about the shifts. I know with fire, there's always some overtime that's kind of assumed just because of how the shifts fall and what those guys are doing. Same with police. I know police is a lot more than fire because they are at least one man down, I believe. So they're having people cover that shift. But I will reach out to both of those chiefs and see if there's anything that's attributable to, first, second, or third shift or what's going on with that.
And I will say a particular kudos to the fire department, because a year ago, I think that their percentage of overtime would have been much higher.
Sure.
But because of some changes that they made, it seems like they're doing a great job of handling overtime. So.
Rosemary, you have comments? You're on mute.
I got a slight interruption. So I wanted to go back to the fund balances. Particularly,
But before you go back 1 second, is there any more comments on the overtime? I have just one comment on the overtime, so we don't flip back and forth, if you don't mind.
well, yes, it's fine.
For the overtime, Tim, can you look into what it's costing? I guess I should ask for this overtime. It's probably not even a part of it now that I think about it. I was thinking when we train officers and they leave, that's not a part of that overtime number. This is straight work hours, right? This is people working.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the training hits another line item.
So that's even more, because you got the shortage, you're short, and then if you're short, that may be more people that are working overtime because you're short people, 1 or 2
Correct.
people, the number is.
Correct.
But the training has to be a whole nother line. So when you're looking into that, can you
Sure.
maybe follow up with Chief and see if he can tell how many people have actually left and how much, training, almost like the wheel is spinning. The person comes in, they're trained, and then they decide to leave for whatever reason. And
Sure.
the cost of that is probably, it's costing us probably a lot of money just for the rotation of that wheel if they're not staying, is what I'm saying.
So probably how many new hires have left within the last couple of years, and then how much have we spent on training for those new hires?
Yes, that would be great. I think we need to filter that in too. Take a look at that.
I'll ask a question about overtime after you, Rosemary. Go ahead.
You guys are discussing overtime. Go ahead and discuss the overtime, and I'll follow back with my
Let
question.
me ask you this, that we're down an officer or 2 officers, I'm not sure of how many, or firemen. The money that we're using on overtime, is there some kind of counter for that? The fact that we are not paying the number of officers that we should have? Say that we would have been paying for an officer with benefits and everything, kind of taking that money that of an officer that we're missing or a fireman that we're missing?
Sure. There's always a trade-off. If you're paying somebody overtime, then obviously you're not paying additional health benefits and things of that nature that you would pay another individual. The question is, when does it become, for lack of a better term, excessive? Once you're paying an additional salary, then it's probably about time to start thinking about hiring another person.
Okay.
And if I can find mine, that overtime report, on the police side, up through July, we've paid $46,622 in overtime to the police. That's currently more than a rookie police officer's salary in the village of Woodlawn. By the end of the year, you'll have paid that salary plus benefits, essentially. Fire's not as bad. They're at 24. They get 24,000 in round numbers. They're probably right about where they ought to be in overtime, to be fair, with the way that their schedules run. I'll look into it with Chief Johnson as well. But that one doesn't. just looking at it, it doesn't concern me as much as the police side. And you know, the other part of that is obviously you're working those officers a lot harder, which
Right,
you don't really want to do.
right.
Just leads to fatigue and things like that.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Rosemary.
Okay, Rosemary, your question?
My question is on the recreation income versus receipts. I just want to know, recreation receipts, general fund, you gave that number of 23,000.
Okay, yeah,
Expenditures, 169,000.
yes,
Is that right?
that is correct.
So we expended 169,000, but only had receipts for so that expenditure, could that include salaries?
It does, yes.
Okay. Okay. And then the food program, it's almost 3,500 over.
Yeah, strangely, we had a fund balance in that fund. You really shouldn't, because it's a reimbursement grant. And we can really only request the reimbursement for what we spent out of the general fund. So we spent everything in the fund as well as made advances from the general fund, which should be reimbursed from the federal government on that one.
So that 7,000 something includes a balance that was in there.
It does, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else before we move on? Go with no. Negative fund balances. Since being identified in May, the village has eliminated a total of $44,996.04 in negative fund balances. Just kind of like last time, our two biggest concerns are the general obligation bond fund, the 3101 fund, and the 4901 capital projects fund. We are paying those amounts off slowly but surely, and we're still going to kind of stick with the strategy that we laid out before, and hopefully those will be eliminated by the end of 2021. Everything else, I'm hopeful will be gone by the end of this year. I'm a little concerned about the state highway fund, but even if we carry that over into 2021, it's not going to hurt us any, given what we're doing with the 3101 and 4901 funds. The fire levy fund, I think I said last time that negative balance should be eliminated this month. It should be eliminated in August. So we're looking at July's numbers. The payment from Hamilton County should come in this month. It hasn't come in yet. It normally comes in around this time. And that negative $63,000 should be gone at this next the finance committee meeting in August. And if we happen to get it before council, I'll let you guys know, and we can know that fund balance.
Did we lose Tim?
I think so.
Tim, you're frozen if you can still hear us. So he's gonna probably try to call back in.
Yeah, it looks like it.
I'll bring him back in when he posts up.
Okay. We'll give him a minute.
Sorry about that, guys. The computer just died on me.
That's okay.
I'll have to give that one back to Richard when he comes back in. Okay. The last thing I asked was if we had any questions about negative fund balances. Did you guys hear everything I said?
Yes, I think we understand. Unless someone has a comment.
Okay. Guessing no. Recreation income versus receipts. There's a table below, and Rosemary, and I kind of discussed that a minute ago, that lists recreation receipts versus expenditures. In the general fund, we've spent $145,907 more than we receipted in related to recreations. That number does include salaries. This is a tough year for them too, with the pandemic. They weren't able to do the rentals. I know they make a lot off of that. Food levy, excuse me, rather the food program fund, we're at a negative $3,529.58. That amount should be reimbursed by the federal government. That's a federal grant. That's on a reimbursement basis. And in terms of the pool levy, we're currently $66,180.95 ahead. Obviously, without any pool operations, there aren't very many pool expenses. That may change here soon. I know we're obviously we're trying to do some renovations of that pool.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Related to the pool levy, you just talked about the not having many expenditures, but do you know what the 15,000 was?
A chunk of that was made up of the money we had to pay to Swim Safe. That was roughly half of it. That's $8,000. I know there were some other items that we had to purchase for the pool as well. I can get you a detailed expenditures list and send it to you if you want to know what they are. Off the top of my head, I don't recall the other ones though.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think that majority was the Swim Safe to kind of get out the contract. We had to pay a little bit. I want to say it was around 12,000.
I remember that.
Yeah, I remember the $8,000
paid.
bill. That was a chunk of it.
Yeah.
There were probably some other little ones too, or smaller, I should say. Do you guys want a detailed list of those expenses, I can email that to you tomorrow if you'd like it.
That'd be cool. You can send, thank you.
Okay. Yep.
Is there any updates on the pool? Do we know when those expenses will begin to come in? Do you know if there's been?
Jerry met with one of the contractors last month, I think it was. I spoke to him today about it. They're supposed to be sending him some bid specifications. He thought he would have received them by now, but they've been a little slow. He expects to get those this week, and we can finally get a better idea of what it's going to cost, and we can start that bid process.
Because I've been getting questions out from the residents in regards to that we know when we're going to start it. So
yeah, no, I understand.
I think are getting those same questions.
Okay.
Yeah, we know that it's winding down into fall almost. So I know this is a project that carries on for a while and into 2021, but just want to make sure, that we take full advantage of getting that fixed.
Yep. I did note, and I think I have it in two spots in the report here. Of the receipts noted for recreations, $9,144 are related to summer camp, and we had $7,066 in expenditures. So for up through July anyway, we're up for summer camp. Now August was their last month. We'll see where we land on it, but it looks good. It looks better than I thought it would at the moment. So that's positive. Any other questions or thoughts with the recreations income versus receipts?
I'm sorry, I kind of jumped ahead when I asked.
That's okay.
I kind of jumped ahead, but
Not a big deal. Strauss and Troy invoices. I put a table in to show how much we've spent on legal services to date. We spent $87,768.04 with Strauss and Troy currently. $45,647.47 of that are between the months of May and July, specifically. In prior years, we spent between $60,000 and $70,000 with Strauss and Troy in round numbers. Obviously the issues with the fire truck have jumped that up a bit, and obviously that's a big legal expense we've taken on. So that's kind of where we're at with Strauss and Troy. Were there any other questions or comments related to that, or anything you guys want me to look into?
Yeah, I have a comment. I think that council should be reviewing those invoices that come through for Strauss and Troy. That should be done on a monthly basis. An itemized type of invoice.
Okay.
I think we have talked about that before, but there's something that won't allow us to review those. Rosemary.
So how does it, maybe he can make me understand that process. What happens? That the invoice comes in?
There's an invoice that comes in. So if you to describe a legal invoice, you'll have a cover page, which will show the total amount that you owe the law firm, right? And then on the detailed bill behind the cover page, there are additional pages that show how the attorney's time has been spent. So it'll bill out, 15 minutes discussing with Tim bond issues, 20 minutes discussing with Jerry employment issues, or whatever it happens to be. But I know there's a lot. I know there's a lot of detail in those. You can actually see how all that time is billed out. I'm not sure.
So who approves it? Because it's got to be, I'm just saying that just not what they do, but it's got to be a huge bill when you think of $80-some thousand worth of invoicing. Who should be reviewing that? Is that something? Who
Rosemary. Rosemary's trying to answer your question.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. First of all, it's not that we can't see it. All right. It's that if we do see it, it's not public knowledge. Okay.
Right.
Because it's very detailed.
Okay.
And what I understand is, Tim, you would get the bill.
Yes, we do.
Bill. I don't know if you get the detail. From what I'm understanding, do you get the detail sheets behind it?
I do, yeah.
Oh, okay. From what I was understanding, the detail sheet went to the village manager. Okay.
Yeah, I know Jerry gets it as well. I know I've gotten it before.
Yeah. However, it's not that we can't see it. We're not allowed to see it. It's just when it was brought to us once before, there were outside people in that meeting. Okay. And because it has very detailed, such as if there were some private issues, so forth and so on. So requesting that is not a bad idea. All right. We just have to be particular as to where and when we see that.
I would think that if you wanted to discuss it, you would have to go into executive session, and there is a specific Ohio Revised Code to discuss legal issues within executive sessions.
Most
I think it would fall under that.
Most definitely.
I think Kiana had her hand up.
I was just going to say, with the amount, I know that for 2020, I imagine it's higher than it has been in the past, just because of the ongoing legislation that we have.
Right.
Or litigation, I'm sorry, that we have going on, which is causing it to increase some.
It is. I believe the estimate for that particular piece of litigation started at 125,000 and went up to 136. So I expect that that's about where, I expect that at the end of the day, or at the end of the year, or maybe even into next, I'm not sure how long that thing's going to take, we'll spend roughly 200,000 with Strauss and Troy.
Yeah, I just know we mentioned, I was just looking at the dollar amounts. I know we had mentioned that when it's over a certain amount that it needs approval or something. If the invoice is over.
If the invoice is over It's either 9 or 10,000.
10,000?
I'm blanking.
It's
It's
10,000.
supposed to be approved by council. Thank you, Rosemary.
Okay.
10,000.
It's 10.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Those are total bills. I don't believe. I will check to see if a single bill is over 10,000. And see if that, and I'll, I know I probably wasn't as vigilant in April and May about that. I'll look into June for you.
Okay, I'm just looking at the dollar amount and just trying to make sure that we're covering our seats for that.
Yep. Okay.
Ms. Boyd
Anything
had her
after
hand
Strauss?
up.
Anything?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see,
Oh.
I don't see this Boyd on my screen. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Before we finish, so we cannot, the itemized bill can't be public, is not public information because of the detail and sensitivity of it. However, can we see it, like if we came in, would you be able to show it to us individually or?
Yes.
Where we were saying we could go and we could see it. Probably do it as a group if you want, but it would have to be in, like Tim said, that's probably executive.
Okay.
Right, thanks, Tim.
Moving on. Anything other? I think anything else with Strauss and Troy? I'm limited to one window now, so I can't see everybody.
I think we're good.
Okay. Swim safe update. Obviously, that contract is still suspended. I'm just going to put that together with the pool repairs as we talked about. Village management with the contractor and is awaiting bid specifications. Those should be in by the end of the month. Hopefully, but before we meet with council this month, actually. So we'll see how it goes. Recreation summer camp. Again, review of revenues versus expenditures. We spent 91. I'm sorry. Sorry guys, I didn't get a chance to proofread this one. We've taken in $9,144.34, and we've expended $7,066.79. In terms of a plan to reduce general fund expenditures related to recreations.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Did you say that backwards? I thought it said it's spent 9,000.
Yeah,
And-
that's a typo on my end.
Okay. So
Yeah, no, we've spent $7,066.79, and we receipted in $9,144.34. That's also under the recreation income versus receipts heading in the report.
Can I ask a follow-up question on that?
Sure, go ahead.
Is that inclusive of staff time as well?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, that's everything related to that camp.
Thank you.
In terms of plan to reduce general fund expenditures related to recreations, obviously we're in the process of hiring a new recreations director. I'd like to sit down and discuss the recreation center with the assistant director, as well as the village manager, to attempt to create a plan to reduce the general fund expenditures related to recreations. I'll go ahead and schedule a time to sit down with the assistant director here sometime around in September and see what we can kind of come up with. I try to get something tentative together. Obviously, once we get the new director for the village, new recreations director for the village, we'll want that individual to be, part of that as well. Compensation, retention of police and fire employees. We kind of discussed this at the committee of a whole meeting. We submitted a proposal for 2%, 3%, and 5% increases to police and firefighters. I kind of, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, I kind of feel like everybody was looking for the 5% increase on that. If that's the case, I'll go ahead and ask Emily to draft that legislation to present it to law. Otherwise, we can, I'm sure we can do something to amend the percentage if anybody wants to. Am I correct on my on what I believe was the reaction, that we were kind of looking for the 5% on all those guys? Okay.
Yes.
I believe you're
think
correct.
so. Yeah.
Ms. Boyd has her hand up.
Yep.
I had asked if it were possible that we could see if we could get the salary closer to 48,000 and see what that means, what that entails, what that looks like to our budget. Is that a possibility? Because the 5% takes it up to what, 44? I don't have my notes from last time.
5% would take it up to about 42.
42, whereas the median was, well, I thought someone said 52. I don't have my notes here. Oh, no,
Yeah.
we talked about that in the Cal meeting. And the
That was
median,
correct.
52.
52 was correct.
Okay.
52,
so,
yeah, what you quoted.
I'm not sure if it's possible, but I don't know if you have the time, but I would like to look at to see what it would mean to have it around 48.
I can put together numbers and send them to you so you can see what it looks like. I know the 5% is kind of what what village manager and I knew we would be comfortable with, just kind of not knowing all the pieces of the puzzle yet. What I'd like to do is make sure we get them the 5% so that I know that they got it. And then as the year goes on, I want to continue to reassess that. I in the committee of the whole report, I noted that I want to get something together to get a proposal to be submitted at the very latest by when we meet at the middle of the year 2021. I'd like to get something together a little bit sooner than that. I just want to make sure I give myself enough time. But the 5% isn't where, in my mind, certainly that's not where we stop. That's a beginning, and that's something that we want them to know that we can do that for them right now, and then give us a little bit of time until we can figure all the pieces out, and we'll keep going.
Okay, but could you, before I would want to vote on that, I would like to see the other piece, a tentative look at the other piece. It may be completely and absolutely out of reach. I would like to see it up close. And
yeah, I'll. You're cutting in and out of me a little bit, but
if you could get that together before I would feel comfortable voting on a 5%, I would really like to see if we could get closer to 8,000. It may be impossible, but I would like to review the numbers with you first.
You want to see what the numbers look like? Okay, yeah, that's not a problem. I'll put that together and send it to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, Rosemary.
Am I correct in understanding that when putting the numbers and everything together for next year, that they would be included in any raises that were given next year? That was the conversation, correct? Next year, it would be all employees, and they would be included also?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's what we were looking to do.
They would get one this year, and then next year also.
Right.
Employees got one. Okay.
Yes.
I remember that correctly.
Yes, we wanted to do 5% for police and fire this year. We want to do something for all employees next year. I know Mayor has asked me to look into doing something for all employees this year as well. So I'll be working on that as well and trying to get those numbers together for everybody.
Well, I say that in saying if you're trying, Ms. Boyd was suggesting that we try to get to the 48,000, not forget that next year they'll be in line for a percentage also.
Yes, they will. It's what I guess the thing I'm trying to avoid is moving into it too aggressively. I feel like if we can kind of do this now, and I can kind of see how the numbers are moving,
Right.
more towards November and December, I can get a good baseline of what we're really spending. And then after that, it'll make it a little bit easier to really see kind of where we're going to land, hopefully. It's just, right now it's a little difficult just because I don't feel like we've had the best of reports in prior years. And it's difficult to, I really kind of need that baseline year to feel completely comfortable doing something real big.
I agree.
Have you also considered some of the other recommendations as far as the steps, the pension pickup? Have you looked at the cost of some of those recommendations?
The steps would be something we would do in the future proposal, because the step, it would be, in year one, you get an X amount increase, year two, you get another percentage increase, so on and so forth. So we can get those into the next proposal. The 100% benefits pickup, that's a hard one for me, just because it's difficult for me to sign on to doing that just for police and fire. I don't care to do something for just one or two departments. I feel like if we do something like that, that's got to be for everybody in the village, not just a certain group of people.
Okay.
Increase in
just recommendations, so.
Yeah, and if council wants me to do that, I'll put the numbers together and we can look at it. But I don't recommend doing that.
Okay.
Increase in longevity and all that. I haven't looked into the cost of it yet. I don't know that cost is going to be huge. But I think right now we're just really kind of trying to get the salary part of it figured out. And then when we get that other proposal together, I'd like to address those other things then.
Okay.
We've got a little bit more time to figure it out. Anything else with that before I move on?
No, I think we're moving into the right direction. I would just like to see kind of what Ms. Boyd had suggested.
Sure.
We know where we stand with the 5%. And also, I would like to see where we're going with this as far as 2021, which I know you're working on all that. And if we can add something from the recommendation list, or if you have any other recommendations to try to make this thing whole, even if it doesn't have to take place in 2020, it could take place 2021 to 2022. I'd like to know where we're going.
Sure.
So we can see where we might end up, in the future, to make this more whole of where we should be.
Right. Absolutely.
I agree with you there. Maybe totally outlandish, even to that 48,000. That's the example, but then everybody can see that it's totally outlandish. And
sure.
That's all I'm saying, then people are more understanding, not feeling slighted by it. Yeah.
Right. No, I understand.
And with everybody, the rest of the employees are planning to raise everybody's salary. But if you show it in perspective, and I don't get the raise that I really wanted, but I see the numbers and I understand it.
Sure.
And that's all I'm asking for. Okay.
Right. No, I understand. Yeah, the other part of that, I know people have asked if we're coming in, that far under with police and fire salaries, why can't we do more? Part of that is that while we've over budgeted, so to speak, for those salaries, there are other line items that we're under budgeted for, and the goal is that we're trying not to raise appropriations a whole lot this year. But yes, I'll absolutely get those numbers together and send them out to you guys. Code enforcer. We discussed that at committee as a whole as well. I don't have anything new to report on it at this time. We can follow up with Jerry again at council, but nothing has changed as far as I know.
I know that there's some concerns in regards to full-time or part-time. I'll just leave that out there. I know that there was some other concerns in regards to it, but we can talk about that later.
Absolutely. New business.
Hold on. I think,
I'm sorry.
Ms. Boyd, did you have a comment?
Yeah, we emailed today from one of our constituents that I'm sure you all got and read about the code enforcer, and she was pretty adamant. She sent pictures and everything. So I'm hoping, what's the soonest you think we might be able to get one, or do you have any idea?
I don't have a timeline for it. I can talk to Jerry, to the village manager tomorrow, and see where he's at on it. But as far as I know, I don't know of any changes.
Well, when you
Yes,
mentioned it, I think it should be priority. Not
Yeah.
sure where everybody else thinks, but that's not totally my call. So Rosemary.
Yeah, I think we all want that. However, the village manager did send a response to that email, and he also copied us on that email.
Okay.
We know that we are in the process of looking for a village manager, and not
Okay.
a village manager, but a code enforcer.
Okay.
He did address that and copied us all on the email.
Okay. Thank you.
Very good. With new business, I've gone ahead and provided you all with a list of intra fund transfers again. Those are transfers between accounts within the same fund, so they don't increase or decrease appropriations as a whole. It just allows us to move the money around within the fund and within the departments. Listing of those funds is attached to this report. Bank reconciliations. We are reconciled through June 2020. I really just have to press the finalize button on that one. I expect to have July reconciled when we meet again here for council. Thought I'd have it done here for finance committee, but I fell a little bit short. But expect for you guys to have bank reconciliations this month. That'll be the final piece of your reporting puzzle. And that way you know that the money that you're being reported on is actually in the bank. Tax budget, I'll be working on to prepare the tax budget this week. There will be a hearing for the tax budget prior to the council meeting on June 25th, after which we'll go ahead and approve that, and we'll send it off to Hamilton County to be in compliance. Last couple things I have are some legislation. I'm sorry, did somebody have a question?
I don't see anybody, so.
Okay, sorry. I'm limited to one screen, so I thought I heard something. I have a couple pieces of legislation. One's a transfer ordinance, and that is an ordinance to transfer the $1,193.05 from the fire department's general fund equipment line item to the COVID-19 supplemental fund. That's for their match for that federal grant. And then an appropriations ordinance again for that COVID-19 supplemental fund for the fire department. So that's all I had under new business, unless somebody else has something.
I actually do.
Sure.
It's in regards to payroll check and balances.
Okay.
Control for payroll checks and balances. And you may have to help me with this. So you have your payroll clerk should not approve and cut checks for payroll. I wanted to know if there's some sort of checkpoint. Does the state auditor come in and look at that? So when people put their time in, is there, so when they put their time in, that comes from the actual employee that puts their time in. And then there's management that approves that, or how does that all work? I just want to make sure that our checks and balances are, controls are pretty tight when it comes to that. And can we be, when the state comes in, can there be findings in regards to that if that's not complete? How do they look at that?
So what we're talking about right now are payroll controls. The payroll controls for the village are all within the Paycor system. So the employees enter their time into the Paycor computer application. The department head approves it. So if I'm with Public Works, Mr. Brown approves it. If I'm with police, that would be Chief Tillman, Fire Chief Johnson, obviously. Once the department head approves it, the payroll clerk reviews the the time and the pay grids. If she sees any issues, she goes ahead and contacts the department head to iron those out. And then once those issues are complete, she goes ahead and approves the remainder of, she goes ahead and does a secondary approval. Paycor actually technically cuts the checks. So basically we put all the information in, ship it to Paycor, and then Paycor is actually the one, you know, essentially cutting the checks. They're putting in the direct deposit order. Once that's done, we get a payroll report from Paycor that the payroll clerk reviews. I reconcile the bank accounts at the end of the month, which is an additional oversight and control. If something looks out of line, I ask about it. But in terms of what the state of Ohio reviews, their current what's the word I'm looking for? Their current strategy for audits right now, generally speaking, is that they document controls. They don't test controls very often anymore. So they'll come in and they'll ask, what are your controls for Paycor? We'd explain it to them just like that. And that would generally be the end of it. They don't test those controls like they used to. That doesn't mean they're not important. It's just they didn't find that it was as helpful in a lot of audit situations. When you get findings, and I guess there are two types of findings. So if you just get an audit finding or what you'd call an audit issue, they can note that there's a lack of controls over payroll if they found that was there, which would mean that instead of having instead of having the department head approve payroll, maybe the payroll clerk's the only person that approves payroll. And then if you're, cutting checks in house, the payroll clerk's also cutting those checks in house. You don't want to have one person be part of all of the cycles of that of payroll. What they look for is a segregation of duties. So again, you would look for, the employee under their time, somebody else, the department to approve the time, a payroll clerk to do another approval, and then a different person to reconcile the bank accounts at the end of the month. So as far as controls, I think we're probably fine on the control side of it. The other type of finding you get that nobody wants to get on payroll is a finding for recovery. And that happens, generally speaking, when somebody really messes up and instead of putting in 10 hours, somebody miskeys it and puts in 100 hours and nobody catches it. And then if the auditor catches that, when they do the audit, they make a finding for recovery against the person that benefited from the 100 hours, things of that nature.
Okay. I think I have it. So it's divided up in salary people and hourly people. Is that how it works down there? Or is it straight? Does everybody put in their payroll, or does
everybody puts in their own hours? I think Paycor will divide it up into a salary and hourly report if you review the reports. But in terms of of putting in your time, everybody puts in their own time.
Okay.
There's a department head that's supposed to be reviewing that time to make sure it's accurate and to make sure nobody's putting in too much time, or the last time excuse me, this last pay run we had, there was an issue with the server where the server at the village went down because of the electrical storm, and it wiped out a lot of people's Tuesday payrolls. And so when that was caught, the department heads came and said, hey, everybody's missing their Tuesday hours. And we made sure those got back in and those checks were cut properly.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that I guess our processes are being used correctly, and that our department heads are definitely signing off on payroll. So I just had some questions with that. Thank you. I think, does anybody else have any questions in regards to that, or comments, or any new business? Ms. Boyd? Okay.
Kim, we have spoken about, I spoke to you about the server issue. Will that be something that we can definitely look kind of take care of in 2021, that we can update that situation?
Are you, and
The one that went out, the server that went out,
you talking about the generator?
oh, it's a generator.
Yeah.
Generator. When the generator, yeah.
As far as a new
Thanks.
generator, I think we can probably look into it for 2021. I haven't gotten any estimates for how, I know we kind of discussed it a little bit during council about what we thought a new one would cost, but I haven't seen an estimate from a company or anything like that. If it's something that we believe is necessary for the village, we'd want to go ahead and get an estimate for that generator. And I believe when we kind of discussed it in council, that was something that was going to be over $100,000. So we would either need to bid that out or go through the state of Ohio's purchasing plan to get that. But if it's something that's necessary,
Okay.
we can absolutely look into that.
Mr. Brown, I believe in Public Works, has gotten that estimate several times.
Oh, okay.
So,
I'll
Yeah.
call him tomorrow and see what they are, and we'll talk it over.
thank you.
Absolutely. Anything? Did anybody else have anything for me? Otherwise, I think whatever other new business is. No.
I don't think so. Does anybody else have any other comments in regards to anything that we've discussed, or want to bring up anything that they'd like to discuss before we close out the meeting? Okay, if there's no other questions or concerns, we will, I need a motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:33.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All right.
All right, at 8:33, we have adjourned the